Welcome to Doctors of the Baobab, a podcast where we delve into the rich tapestry of experiences, challenges, and triumphs that shape the diverse journey of doctors of African descent in Africa and the diaspora. I'm your host, Dr. Nundumiso Makunga Stevenson, a medical doctor, life coach, and founder of Ubuntu Doctor Coaching, dedicated to helping doctors find fulfillment in both their personal and professional lives. On this podcast, we go beyond the white coat to get to know the doctors we admire and respect. Join us as we explore the stories behind the stethoscope, uncovering the humanity behind the medical expertise. Whether it's navigating the complexities of patient care, overcoming personal obstacles, or advocating for change in healthcare systems, each episode promises to inspire, educate, and uplift. So sit back, relax, and prepare to embark on a journey of self-discovery with Doctors of the Baobab. Today, we have the privilege of delving into the remarkable journey of Dr. Doris Macharia, a trailblazer in the field of medicine, from her beginnings in Kenya to achieving extraordinary heights. Doris has not only dedicated a life to healing, but has also embraced every challenge as an opportunity for growth and impact. Join us as we uncover the layers of experience, wisdom, and passion that have sculpted her captivating life path. Welcome, Dr. Macharia, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and stories with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandumiso, and looking forward to the discussion, great conversation, and really learning and sharing as well.
Awesome. So let's start at the roots, at the very, very beginning. How was Dr. Macharia as a child? Share with us a little bit of your background and your upbringing.
Oh, that's interesting. I grew up in Kenya, in Nairobi. That's the capital of Kenya, and went to public sort of elementary school and of course high school. And one thing I must say that struck me a lot in my adult life, as I think of all my precious memories of being a child, is the dreams of my own parents. They dreamt big. I'm now a doctor, not because necessarily I was such a dream big, I had very big dreams for myself, but my parents had bigger dreams for me. And I really enjoyed school. I enjoyed school for what it was worth, was teased for a number of things in my life. I had, a little bit of a cross eye, and I used to be called bionic eye. And that in itself could have pulled me down, but I had great parents and really great social support in terms of being able to sort of realize that, they had dreams for me, and I could also formulate my own dreams and just work hard and do my best. And that was what I did, and I've been fortunate, in very many ways, even as I was a child, I had lots of fun and lots of opportunities, and I was able to finally make it to university, only to realize probably it was just the beginning of many, many things, right? It was not the end all. So I had a really wonderful childhood. And especially with my siblings and friends, it was just a wonderful, wonderful time growing up in Nairobi. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that piece. No doubt your parents now are very proud of you and the choices that you've made. Would you say that getting into the career was more about their dreams or your dreams, or for both? There was some alignment in that.
Yeah, I would say alignment. But, I think of even now, even with my own daughter right now, to imagine that at 17, 18, you have your whole, career mapped out, I think is, there's some who have that sort of maybe ability, but it's hard to sort of see the future in terms of 20, 30 years. So it is an alignment. It is the fact that you can be encouraged in that path. And that was for me, being a doctor. Wow. I knew few doctors. Obviously, apart from going to a hospital, you knew doctors were healers. They had this sort of social standing that was was really admirable. And as well as the fact that, oh yeah, your dreams, you have dreams to do medicine, but also your family is also encouraging you in that path. That is awesome, because then whatever, as you get into medicine, it's going to be a career that is going to be probably good for not only for myself, but also it's something that the family can also embrace and rally around and support. And I think that in itself is very important. And that affirms also that, yeah, my dreams are worth, something. I am somebody, and I can really, really try and go for my dreams and do what I need to do. Yeah. Of course, getting into medicine was a whole other issue. You realize, oh gosh, you start having self-doubt and all these things. But at that particular point, it was really that whole combination of my own family, my parents, my mother and father, their dreams they had for me, including mine. And then that formulates to me, yeah, I can be somebody. I can be a doctor. I can be a healer. I can be somebody who provides healthcare. And that is just, I think that was awesome. Yeah.
Tell me more about the self-doubt.
Oh, yeah. Tons. I have tons to share on that one. I think coming out from high school, you're lots of kids, different abilities, different interests, right? It's easy to stand out with maths and biology and chemistry, right? Very easy. Because you're not going to be many of you, as others will stand out with other subjects. So coming to medical school, you don't really realize that, wow, there are even people who are smarter than you. And it's going to be very competitive. It's going to be very competitive. And all of a sudden, hitting those very high marks is not going to be as easy as it was before. And the self-doubt starts. Can I do this? Am I supposed to be here? Yes, I had this dream, but what if I just, can I change somewhere in between? And then you have, of course, the fact that I've spent all this time getting here. How can I change this? I can't change my direction. I have to still move on. And the subjects were really hard. I remember just the first year doing, human anatomy, and I'm like, oh boy, this is not what I wanted to do. I knew that we were having to have, a cadaver and all that, but this is intense, right? It's so intense. And then, getting now into other years in medical school where, you're doing other subjects like pediatrics, in medicine, obstetrics, gynecology. And some were really tough. Hardest one for me was pharmacology. Oh my goodness, it was mind-boggling, and you had to memorize literally everything. And I was like, is this what I came here for? And then when does it end? And when do I start being the doctor, right? And that self-doubt is there. I think at all points were there. But I think for me, what I used to say is that, if I think I have problems, we had a roommate, we used to share a room right from, I think, my first year to my third year. And you realize it's not only you who is struggling, you just have to try and, cope. And that for me was, I think, a saving grace in many, many ways. But the self-doubt is there. I think I needed the self-doubt to push me and to also make me realize that, yeah, I'm still human and I can fail. But I have to just try, right? If I don't work hard, I'm not going to make it, right? But it's also knowing that self-doubt can be a motivator in itself. But it is there. It is definitely. I could remember very well in our third year of medicine, we moved to a different sort of campus, and we had to, every time when you were walking from the residences and to the lecture halls, we used to pass this big, huge car park, and that car park used to have cars of all the doctors and lecturers, and I used to be like, wow. And lucky them, they finished. And look at them, I hope one day I'll be here. And it was not only me, we used to do that. And I think that's what also kept us going. You realize that, it is possible, right? But it's sometimes so hard to see, it's so hard to see that sort of end goal of your dreams. And also because it's hard, it's long. By the time we were in, I think, fifth year of medicine, colleagues who we had started off with in college, right, who were doing, for instance, let's say the sciences or liberal arts and stuff like that, had already finished. They were graduating, and here you are, still in school. Still in school. You're like, oh, it better count for something. Otherwise, it's going to be a total waste of time. So yeah, so the self doubt has to be there. And was there for me. But, it's also knowing sometimes it used to pull me down. But I think at the end of the day, it motivated me to just keep trying to push on. And just try to move ahead, and realization that I'm not alone. So we all have something we're going through. Yeah.
And I think we all go through it in medical school. We probably don't talk about it as much. But if you were to encourage somebody or advise a young medical student now who's maybe starting out in medical school, how would you, from the lessons that you've learned through your more than 20 years of being in the profession, what kind of advice would you give them around self-doubt?
Yeah, I think for me it was just to say, obviously you have to listen to your inner voice, right? What's your inner voice saying? You love this, right? You love what you're doing. So that's the first thing. You love it, right? So that's the first thing you tell your self-doubt. I love this, I got this. That's one. Number two, you have to look for not only your peers, but also possibly other folks, maybe who might be in another year ahead, or other groups that can be a form of encouragement, where you'll hear similar stories and realize you're not going crazy, and you shouldn't drop this because really you're on the right path. Then for me, I think maybe lastly is also to us to also start looking at options, because sometimes what was feeling a lot of self-doubt is when you're not sure, what am I going to be as a doctor? Am I going to be a pediatrician? Am I going to be an internist? What is it? Start looking for those options and get excited for what those options are. Because I think that's where the self-doubt will also, you'll also talk to it and say, no, you know what? I don't have to be an orthopedic surgeon. I could be this, I could be this. So when you start seeing these options, even within medicine, it's actually encouraging for you. You start feeling like, okay, I could do this and I could do this, I could do this. If I'm not so good at the subjects within, or this particular, maybe the particular subjects within medicine, with the undergraduate degree, you can decide, okay, I'm not so good at pharmacology, but it's okay. I'm not going to be a pharmacologist. I'm not so good at OBGYN, obstetric gynecology, but I don't want to be that anyway. But I think I'm really good at peds. I'm really good at pediatrics. I think I can be a pediatrician. And that in itself begins to, I think, release a lot of stress, anxiety, and helps you to sort of get into the right direction. So I think it's multiple things you could use. And for me, my encouragement is listen to yourself first. Listen to yourself. You're not in the wrong place. You are in the right place. Now you have to journey. You have to start getting your journey correct. Work with other people. Reach out. Get mentored. Hear other people's stories. And then also explore options within medicine, so that then you have that sort of beacon right ahead of you, so that you're like, yeah, I know I'm not so good at this. I didn't do so well in this, but anyway, it's not, I need to pass it, but it's not my area of interest. I just need to make it to the next year because I love whatever we're going to do in year 4 or year 5 or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Very important aspects that you're highlighting: the self-awareness, understanding yourself, what are your interests, what are your strengths, and then putting that towards some goals and working towards some goals so that you are more intentional in your career. And you can do that as early as medical school. You don't have to wait until you've completed medical school. So in terms of the time when you left medical school, what did you have in mind in terms of where you saw your career? Because for a lot of people, when they left medical school and where they are 20 years down the line, is sometimes like chalk and cheese. Some people, yes, they planned it out and they got onto that path, and that's where they are today. But take me back to Doris on the day she graduated and what she thought was going to unfold in the next 20 years and what has happened so far.
I think I'm one of the. I think I'm the person you're talking about. I imagined my life as a doctor in very differently. I mean, I started off, and first of all, you're so relieved that you finally finished, right? And you have now a DR right in front of your name. That in itself is such an honor and a reward for all the hard work. I was very excited, so excited. Um, so that's point number one. And I knew I'm just going to do clinical medicine because who else had I seen? I'd seen doctors who are internists, pediatricians, anesthetists, you name it, right? That's what I had seen. And also those were sort of the disciplines within medicine that had been driven quite hard. Like, oh yeah, these are the successful folks in medicine, clinical work. I then thought, okay, let me go back and do a residency program, a master's in internal medicine, because I need to specialize and be, and be able to be a physician. So that's what I did because I thought that was my path, right? And I did that, and no sooner had I come out, I had just finished my MEd in internal medicine. And then the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and one of my also mentors at the university in terms of my masters, said, "Oh, Doris, there's this opportunity, to look at how, to look at prescription practices of antiretroviral therapy to try and pull together something on how we can help the country to sort of standardize antiretroviral therapy." And I thought, what? No way. I'm not going to do that. I'm doing clinical work. This is not possible. This stuff of public health is for people who don't want to do calls. They don't want to have any night calls. They want to have an easy life. It's not the thing I want to do. Came knocking again. Actually, it was like 2-3 times. I said, okay, let me just go and meet these folks and see, and maybe get them off my back. Do you know, that was the, I don't know, turning point, my epiphany in my own career. I'm now in public health or global health, whatever you might want to call it, and I enjoyed tremendously. But I was thinking, when I was in medical school, public health, we did a bit of community health during one of our, I think, fourth year, but it wasn't really a strong, it wasn't really a strong discipline. However, also public health was not considered like can I use the word bourgeoisie? Yeah, it was not the bourgeoisie discipline.
Yes, you can use the word bourgeoisie.
If I can use that
it
word,
at the top of the medical hierarchy.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It was not like the elite. Of course, there are those within our medicine fraternity that are considered, really nice sort of disciplines to be in terms of work, in terms of career, in terms of also making a good living, right? Public health was not one of them. But I can tell you, just after my residency and then got into, this work with HIV and in Kenya, and it was so humbling to realize that, this kind of work, I can make a big difference, not just to the patient I'm seeing in my clinical practice, but to thousands and millions of people. That was for me very mind-boggling, I can tell you. And all of a sudden, being able to design programs, roll them out, work with communities, create partnerships, have community dialogues, you name it, do policies, guidelines. I had never thought of that. And that to me has been the most exciting part of my own journey. And I can tell you, Dr. Nandumiso, I have never turned back. I have not missed clinical work. And I think to myself, if I was to tell myself, if I was to talk to my medical school self, I would say, yeah, look into public health a little bit more and see whether it's an option for you, right? But, I was able to pivot and then do that. And now, I've done various things, it's HIV, TB, malaria, and now in eye care. And the good thing of, I think, being a medical doctor, I think for me, and my one advice is that you've got a lot of, because we look at health from not just one aspect of health, I may never have reduced a fracture, yeah, because I was not an orthopedic surgeon, but I can tell you what needs to be done. These are the things you need to do. This is, we all have a good sense of, clinical, preventive, curative medicine. And that helps us to get into various aspects of global health, whether they be eye care, they be HIV, maternal and child health. And that is really, for me, the biggest privilege we have as doctors. And therefore, you can really be able to chart your path based on what you want now. You can decide, I just want to do clinical medicine. I want to do research. I want to do just global health work for nonprofits like myself. And you're able to do that. And you're able to quickly sort of also rise in terms of your own leadership, learn from others, and be credible, right? Because you have some gravitas as being a medical doctor.
I like what you're talking about in terms of applying your medical degree in a different setting, essentially. Many young doctors or early career doctors sometimes have the impression that you are leaving medicine if you are moving into a non-clinical role. Are you really still a doctor if you are not in a consultation room with the patient? If you are not with the patient, are you really still a doctor? And I think from what you're saying, that doesn't follow. It doesn't apply. A doctor is a doctor whether you are working with a patient or whether you're in public health or in health tech or in government. It's not defined by whether the patient is with you or not. And that kind of leads me to the question about this doctor identity. Do you feel, or have you experienced in your own life, that people treat you differently because you are a doctor, or you have also adopted and internalized what society thinks you should be because you are a doctor? So this whole title, has it been a burden for you on a personal level, but also in terms of how you show up every day when you interact with other people?
Honestly, it's not a burden. I think for me, I see it as a big privilege. I think let me say from a professional circle, it's really great when I'm able to introduce myself as Dr. Somebody, because then the curiosity starts. So Doris, what are you exactly doing? What do you do? Oh, okay, all right. And then I can explain the work that I'm doing and my own passions and what I want to, what I'm currently doing in terms of my professional life, but also what I'm my own future in terms of what I'm thinking of getting into. And that is a conversation builder. How there's also the fact that when you say you're a doctor in the social circles, people sort of hold you in whether intentional or not, in a sort of a different and a higher regard, that they want to listen to your point of view. And it's how you can use that to sort of have the conversations, have the discussions, but also be able to influence, positively, whether it is talking about why, whether it's issues of from even climate change to why are we having more malaria in this and this and the malaria vaccines, you can be able to weigh in because your opinion is sought after. Now, on the other hand, on a social circle, I sometimes don't like to be called a doctor because then everyone comes with all their problems. Oh, I have this pain. What do you think? Or things like that. Or if I go to see another medical doctor for my own needs, I'm always like, do I tell them I'm a doctor? Because I might be treated differently, right? Because I'm like, they'll think, oh yeah, now they have to be super careful, or they'll think that I already know they're not going to explain something. I'm just calling a particular incident, sometimes it's not that being a doctor, right? For me, at least, who not doing clinical work, I usually am in these long flights, 15 hours sometimes or thereabouts. And inevitably, sometimes people get sick in the plane. And then I hear the voice over, is there a doctor in the plane? And I'm like, oh boy, I just hope there's somebody else inside this plane. And I wait and I wait, and I'm thinking, there must be somebody. I mean, really, this is a huge plane. I mean, there must be somebody else. So when I see somebody going, and then I say, okay, good, let me go and assist now. So then I become the assistant. But I know that, some of those things have been very scary for me. So I always come back home with those sort of stories. But it's because, again, you realize that, yes, being a doctor is not everything. Even in my own position, if being in a plane is also realizing that they better not ask for a medical person. And if they do, I really hope that there's somebody else. Otherwise, I'll just sit down quietly. It sounds so bad, but I've not been in clinical practice for long. And it's very hard for somebody to understand that. Obviously, I can do, the usual first aid. But my hope is that there's somebody else who is, has just come out of their clinical practice yesterday or that afternoon and knows exactly what to do. And then I then can assist the person. So most of the time I usually show up as an assistant. What can I assist? What can I help you with? Can I take the notes? Can I do this? Can I, and that becomes nice because then it's sort of then a nice thing sort of to do. So being a doctor is not everything. And also you can be a doctor in different things. So just wanted to share that as really an example of, you can also feel like you've been boxed, and also you can feel like, wow, you're not, you knowing what your strengths are is going to be also important as well. So yeah, so it's realizing that having the name of doctor, just in front of your name has lots of privileges, has good advantages, but also enables you to sort of, I think professionally, you can definitely grow. I think on the social side is where you need to do a little bit more maneuvering and being a little bit wise in terms of how you want to be, to how you want people to sort of view you, perceive you, and also so that you also are able to give others space to have conversations. Otherwise, you can find yourself, people are like, so what do you think, doc? What do you think, doc? No, it's not only my opinion. There are others. But in a professional setting, it's different because your voice is definitely needed. So I love being a doctor. I think it has really enabled me advance in my career. But it has also enabled me have different conversations socially that I wouldn't have had. So I'd say it's nice. It's really great. All those years of being in medical school, I think are paying. Are paying out for me in a very positive way. Yeah, even despite all those. Doc, tell me what is happening to my eye, and diagnosing people on the fly. That in itself sometimes is funny and a bit annoying, but it's lesser the problem. I think more of the fact that you have an opportunity to engage and really, really influence some of the discussions or issues that are happening, I think, in the world, because your voice actually counts, right? And there's a perception that, you must weigh in, you must know something about this. So that's a privilege. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you raised something very interesting about your voice being heard as a doctor and the weight that people give to your voice in rooms just because you're a doctor. Some people may struggle with that. Some doctors may struggle with that in the sense that when they are in teams, they expect sometimes that because I'm the doctor, I'm right, I'm correct, and my voice is the one that carries the weight. And this sometimes can become an issue when doctors are in leadership positions because you are used to writing doctor's orders and it's just about doctor's orders. And yet you are dealing with people who are often not healthcare professionals at all or healthcare providers. It's different if you're in a hospital setting and there's the nurse and other people, and the context is, and the understanding of people's roles and maybe even hierarchies may be the same. And, we all know our role in a clinical team. How have you adapted that voice when you are leading a team? Because now you are in senior leadership positions, you're a vice president in multidisciplinary setting with finance professionals, HR professionals, IT professionals. How have you managed to make sure that as a leader, you are not bringing this mentality that I'm the doctor and I know everything, which is what doctors are often accused of when they are in leadership positions?
That's a very good point, and I think this stems from even our own training, right? I could remember being in med school and being made to feel, and it was always sort of drummed into you how special you are, right? We are all very special. We are all very clever. We are all these very positive things, right? Of course, there were a lot of other things we were not, but those were never talked about. Was always about, you are the big, kahuna here, so to speak, and you will become this great person. However, our blind spots as individuals and in terms of our profession were never really addressed. And we came out of med school, or even I came out of med school. Yes, I knew I was Doris. I had these dreams. I could do this, then the other, but also thinking that your voice might be the one to count. And most of the time, you find people look up to doc, what do you think? Or in my home language, we say daktari in medicine. Daktari, what do you think? There's always the deferring of what do you think? Now, for me, when now in teams, working for nonprofits, I think has really changed a lot of that thinking for me, because it's realizing that you have to collaborate. There's no other way of getting the results, right? But also understanding that I have my own blind spots, yet I might be good at designing this program. I might be good at really knowing this is the clinical aspect of this work, and this is the likely clinical outcomes, but the financial outcomes, that's somebody else, right? And realizing that I have to be always mindful to my own blind spots, always, always, always. But you're also in a position to be able to make that difference and to be able to bring people together. So there are also aspects of my own character, I know, in terms of I love collaborating, I love doing, working, whether in whether country programs in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, that is very exciting. But also realizing there are other people who have greater strengths, the operations teams, the HR team, even within the work that I do, the others with who are clinical experts extraordinaire, right? And how do I make sure that I'm also not so blind to the fact that, no, I say this, you must do it. It's not like that. And I think that's a good thing of, I must say, in nonprofits and like possibly a hospital setup, which needs that hierarchy. I think in global health, because the challenges we must look at them from different directions. Yeah, we must look at how we're monitoring it, how we're evaluating this, how are we spending the money, that we've been given by the donor? Is the donor happy? Who is the donor? There's so many aspects. So there's no way you can be this expert that can address all those things. You also need to realize you've got blind spots, but also you also need to look at aspects where you need to get yourself trained, and hence the reason, even for me to think of, in the last few years going to do, health economics, because I was like, how does this thing work? I know medicine, but health economics and health insurance, I don't know it. Let me understand it better so that then I'm able to join conversations. I'm able to engage and be able to influence, the thinking around whether it's, rolling out a national health insurance scheme. I didn't know that. But there are others who really will tell you this is how it's done. But I needed to understand that. So it's also retraining yourself, right? And making sure that, you continue to be a useful voice in your team. Whether you're leading it or not, you have to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you're saying about continuously learning and retraining yourself. You have to know, firstly, what it is that you know and what it is that you don't know, and be open-minded and humble enough to go and get additional education or training, whether it's in public health, it's in finance, it's in entrepreneurship, anything can be learned. And somebody once said that doctors generally are very good learners. They love learning. And it becomes a lifelong activity that we do. What has been the one learning for you that surprised you the most?
Oh wow! Let me talk about in terms of from the academic aspect, and then I could talk about it from different. I think was when I did my master's in science in epidemiology. I could not believe there was that kind of world. You know, everything is so methodical. There are diseases you can measure. You know, it was just the most amazing thing. And I kept asking, why didn't I know this stuff in medical school? They probably told us something. I probably wasn't even listening. But it was just that thing of, wow, we can understand diseases from a very logical point of view. We can measure, outbreaks. We can be able to design programs. We can institute quality improvement measures. That to me was something which I could have never imagined. That in itself, I think for me that's one. I think from the academic aspect. I think from routinely my own work was coming to from Kenya. I moved to South Africa, and I was in the Eastern Cape, and I was like, I knew I could do this program for rolling out antiretroviral therapy, but it was like, whoa, this is different. It's different place, different people, different politics, and realizing that the only way to move this is to think about this very much in terms of what partnerships are you going to form, not the ones on paper of we'll give you money and you do this. What partnerships do you need to build around to make sure that you have a successful program? And being new, I mean, I did not know how to, and I still don't know too much Xhosa, but I had to sort of learn all these things and learn the cultural aspects of things. Read people. I was not so, even if I was from Kenya, yes, it's still our African people. It's still reading the culture. That in itself is when I realized, wow, this is the most interesting thing, but it can be done. And it was done, but it was done with, not just yeah, I can do this if I just do this. This is what needs to be happening. But it's also thinking of what are the other things I need to build around here that will enable us be successful, that will enable us get this program up, up and running. So for me, I would say those are the sort of two inflection points that have been the most learning. And maybe if I could offer one more, I was working for a particular organization and I said, I think I want to do regional work. Oh yeah, I want to do regional. I think I'm ready for this, felt so confident. And then, wow, business development. I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea what business development was, not from a pharmaceutical point of view. It's like, what is this? Wow, I was like, I didn't know what it was. But I think the organization I was working for then was so awesome because we were taken for training. And I actually did a training on on business development, the various colors in business development, especially when when you're bidding for U.S. government contracts or grants or cooperative agreements. I didn't know there was that side of the business, right? I didn't know there was that aspect of business development. So again, it was like, I need to learn something. I am a fish out of water here and needed to do that quick, but also knowing that the organization was also going to help me along the way and help me to be successful. So, there are many, many inflection points, but maybe those three are the ones which I could say were more like an aha moment that I had to use and utilize, not only, I had to think about things beyond my training, right? It was really just about how can I adapt? What do I need to do? And how do I need to move forward?
Okay. What I'm hearing you, and just guide me here, but what I'm hearing you also talk about in the first point that you made was about the importance of networking and the benefits of networking, especially if you are coming into a new environment. The support structure that you build around you by reaching out to people, identifying people as additional resources can actually make your work easier. And you mentioned also earlier on, and I'm assuming this could also be part of the networking, is identifying mentors. And maybe you can share a little bit about maybe yourself as a mentor or any mentors that you've had that you think have helped you with your personal as well as your professional life?
Oh, in terms of mentors, for me, there have been many. And I think mentors are just different. I mean, from the time of just getting into this whole global health space. And at that time, the head of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Kenya saying, Doris, I think you can do this. I really think you can do this. And I didn't even know I could do it. I had no idea I could do it. But that was one mentor. Even in medical school, having mentors who were, looking through my own, we had to do a thesis for our master's in medicine, and somebody being able to say, hey, I think, why don't you do it this way? And not just because I'm your supervisor, but also because I want to mentor you. And those particular contacts, how they opened up a lot, a lot for me in my own career. So there've been different mentors along the way, both men and both women. But I'm also, served as a mentor. I think some more, I know there are people who've reached out and said, I want you to be my mentor. But those are not as many as the people you mentor without very indirectly, right? Whether they're in your team, I know I do that all the time, being able to say, this is what happened to me, or this is what I've learned, or do it this way. This is what I did it this way, it didn't work. Try it this way. Or, oh yeah, let's go for, just recently we have, we're looking at, I was looking at a particular conference where I got invited to go and speak. And I thought, I'm not going to travel all the way to, to Asia for this particular conference. I wonder which colleague is close by and they're willing, and we can mentor them to be able to prepare. And I thought, wow, this is great. And it was just that thing of, oh gosh, Doris, you mean like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And and you can do a great job. And we'll mentor you to pull together, your slide deck or your presentation and things like that. So there's I think we are mentors. I'm a mentor. I know many of us are mentor, not necessarily intentional in the sense of there's that mentor mentee. That's great if it's there. But always think of my role as I'm always in a position where you're mentoring very indirectly. You don't know, you're modeling your behavior. You're modeling I'm modeling how women like myself, African women, Black women from Africa, can also think about this is, oh gosh, I can relate with Doris on her life as when she was doing her MBCHB, her undergraduate. I can relate now in global health, right? I can relate with this, but also I see she made this mistake here. I'll try not to make the same mistake again. I'll try not to make the same mistake because she shared this and said she did this and this did not work. I'll try not to do it. So it's also the mentoring of knowing you're going to model. You have to, you're modeling behavior. So and always being mindful of that all the time. So I'm a great advocate of mentorship, and not just women mentoring women. It's also women and men mentoring women and men, and vice versa as well. So and that's the way we grow, because we need to be mentored in different things. Yeah. Right now in the position I am in, if I'm thinking of, I need to move into a different position, I probably have to have a mentor because I've never been there before. So I can't also imagine just because I'm Dr. Doris Macharia, I know how it is to be, this particular position. I must think about who can mentor me over and above the, training that you might do. So mentorship is really important, should not be underestimated. But we need to reach out. I would want people to also reach out, not to wait to be told, do you want to be a mentee or to be a mentor? Just do it, either be a mentor or just say, hey, can you mentor me, or can I watch you? What are the things we can work on together? And that way you mentor each other. Even as peers, you can mentor each other on different aspects of your lives. Yeah.
That's right. But I want to touch on that, because a lot of the value that you bring into a mentorship or even a coaching relationship is informed by the challenges that you yourself have overcome or the experiences that you've had. Maybe you can share with us a challenge or two that you've experienced that you feel after passing through that, it's something that you definitely want other women or other leaders to be aware of. And, share with us how you managed to overcome that challenge.
Wow. Oh, yes, that's a good one. I think for me is, I think being a woman and being a doctor and being in this sort of global health space is extremely challenging. I wouldn't lie to you, and especially when if you're a woman who is who's got small kids or has very a lot of responsibilities. And I could remember putting my hand up and thinking, yeah, I want to do regional work and all this international work, but you're straddling on so many responsibilities, right? Home responsibilities, of course, your own person. You have to travel, the planning you have to do before you travel. That itself for me was a big challenge, I must say, was huge. And not knowing how to voice it so you don't look weak. If I tell Dr. Nondumiso that I'm really struggling here, will it mean that I'm weak or that I don't want to do it, right? And now I think to myself that, how I was able to get out of that was, I would say, by sheer luck at that time. Because also there's also there's also a lot of some years ago, how do you speak out and not feel judged, right? And not feel like that you look weak, right? But I think of right now the number of women who are in the same position as me. But at that time, you're like, who looks like me and where can I turn to, right? And who is not my supervisor, right? Not easy at all, not easy at all. The resources now are much better, I would say. I mean, even just having this conversation is a resource in itself. There are more resources out there for young women. There are resources out there for women, mothers who want to, want to really have, get their careers, taking off. But I think at that time for me was, I would just say sheer luck. It was just juggling, was really tough, trying to make sure that I reach the end of a particular day. And then I'm like, okay, all right, 1 year is done. Can another year go? Can another year go? Okay, it's great. So you look like you're, really, at work, everything seems to be excelling, right? And doing very well, right? At home, the same, but it's such a huge burden. But obviously, knowing that you have friends and family, that's usually a good, way of sort of having your own, whether it's mentorship or support system, I think really does help. But I would say right now is also for women, women who are in medicine, to reach out to others as well. And there's no shame in that at all. And those are things I look back and I think, how could I have done this better rather than just finding yourself winging it, And for me, that is one thing I think that even as in the position that I am in right now is to be able to encourage, my own, hey, are there things that you're struggling with? What can we help? What can I help you with? Do you need a coach here? These are areas I think, perhaps you need some support. How can we work together? So it's also modeling that, because where else does it start? Because I know I really had those struggles, but I also want to admit, Dr. Nondumiso, that my struggles were not necessarily unique. I know there are also other women similar, but at that time, you're looking for anyone who looks like you, who could help you, but also not pull you down, right? And being able to get that network of good colleagues and peers, you can rally each together, but also say, hey, have you tried this? Did you read this? Go into contact so and so, or something like that. And then organizations to also support that in terms of, oh, you need to have a coach. And coaching doesn't mean you're failing as a leader. It just means you need support and you need to think through things. And coming out of that sort of failure to more of, we are progressing and you have your career is it's always going to be this progression, right? And how do we help you get those, social skills or whatever skills that you might need to enable you to be more effective? So it's better now. But I think 10 years ago, even 5, I don't know, it was tough.
It was tough. It was definitely tough. And it's often a situation in leadership positions, especially for international organizations, where you may find yourself being one of very few women in the room. More so if you are a Black woman, and especially if you are an African women. What are your views on that? Has that been the hallmark of your career, where you are often the only woman or the only Black woman and the only African woman in the room? And talk to me about the dynamics. What kind of, how do you show up? How do you prepare for that? What are you mindful of going into that space, or there's nothing that you think about when you are in that room as the only Black woman, the only African woman in the room?
Oh wow, that is so. The African woman, yes. First of all, is making. I've been in that situation a number of times, or definitely in my career, for sure. And I just think of even my time in Kenya, where when you have people who look like you, who talk like you, and sound like you almost don't think there's going to be another world where you're going to be the only person who looks like you, right? And sounds like you. So the way I think of showing up and the way I do it is, one is you have to be authentic and remember that you're not representing all Kenyans, all Africans. No, that's not your role. But that's also very difficult because that's the default setting. Doris, how do you know Macharia this and this? I'm like, there's so many Macharias in Kenya. I possibly can't know them. But here, let me use the opportunity to tell you more about Kenya and to tell you more about the Macharias, right? And where the Macharias come from. That I can do. So it's also turning these conversations, which can be very awkward, to something positive, but also trying to make sure that sometimes it's hard because you are trying to figure out, how do I fit here? How can my voice be heard? And making sure that the perspectives which you're coming from are included. I think that's a tough space, but again, it goes back to organization. Have the organizations also embraced whether it's diversity, equality, and inclusivity? That is a good plus because then you have a platform. But it's always going to be hard. I've just told myself, and I've just realized, to think it's going to be easy is not being. I think the realistic thing is that it's always going to be tough until we have more women, more Black women, more African women occupying these spaces and being genuine, be able to speak your mind in a very obviously professional way as much as you can, and being able to speak your truth and do the work. But you have to collaborate. You have to understand also where other folks who are sitting there, where they're coming from and their own culture. So it's a two-way process. But I think it's very hard. It's very hard because people sometimes get to your accents and they're like, Doris, I can't hear what you're saying. I'm like, what do you mean you can't hear what I'm saying? What do you mean you can't hear what I'm saying? I also can't hear what you're saying, but let's try and understand each other. So it's all these things which become a distraction. But when you come down to the real nitty-gritty, the real meat of it all is, I'm here to contribute. You are here to contribute. How do we make this organization become an awesome organization, right? And knowing that I might see things differently and you too, and just being able to forge ahead. But it's hard. It's very, very, very hard. I mean, recently, I was just thinking about even sometimes, a behavioral practice that is so easy to get into is, when I'm speaking to someone who looks like me, everything is like, yeah, everything is great. But when I'm speaking to somebody else, I'll just sort of switch, right? And how does that sort of come across, right? Does that help me to sort of send my message through, whether it is about whether we're designing a program, delivering, or I want to sort of share a point in terms of a particular policy. So I think the space is not going to be easier in the short term, but I think eventually it is, as we make the circle bigger, get more women, especially women, African women, Black women, in in places of leadership, but also for us to continue just modeling that. I think the behavior and the practice that we also think is the right thing, and also that the way we want to be treated as well.
Very interesting insights there, where as Black women, we sometimes have to put a persona on when speaking to people who don't look like us, to avoid stereotypes. So you want to show up in a certain way. You want to go into a meeting dressed in a certain way so that people get past certain impressions and really get to listen to who you are. And as you've said, have to now adopt a different style, a more authentic, genuine, and open style when you are talking to somebody who looks like you. You know, you may show up a little bit differently. That's so interesting. Now, how would you describe your leadership style?
Oh, that is amazing. That's a good question. I like to think myself as a very progressive leader, and I think I am very much open to ideas. I like working in teams where people are bringing in different perspectives, and I really try to encourage that as well, but also to make sure that we are accountable. And the accountability aspect is always, for me, I think that the toughest one of it, because it means making tough decisions, but making tough decisions about others' accountability in the team, but also mine as well. So it's very much very open, and also something. I'm also, I think I'm a leader who I hope and I really value people's contributions, and yeah, and just try and enjoy most of the journey. Can't enjoy it 100%, but at least most of the time be able to enjoy working together, building, brainstorming, and getting the job done.
Great. So what are you proudest of so far in terms of your professional accomplishments?
Many things, Dr. Nondumiso, to be proud of. I don't think there's only one. There's got to be only one. I think for me, perhaps the biggest one is, let me just start from the beginning. It's just being able to do my medicine, right? To be a doctor. I think because that's what has really opened up a lot of opportunities for me. So I think, if I'm really honest, I would say that's my biggest accomplishment, because that's a time of a lot of, as we discussed earlier, self-doubt. Will I actually make it? Will I finish this? Do I want to finish? And then the rest is a lot of, the rest has been, I think, it doesn't look as easy, but it's actually the easier ones, because just being able to do my medical degree, it has been able to open up lots of opportunities for me, but also enabled me to actually see my real self, what I like to do, being honest with myself, and then taking my career in a different path. So I think doing medicine, definitely for me, the game changer in my life. Yeah.
Right. So it was a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Doing
Yeah.
the medical degree. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, now you're a very busy doctor. For sure, you have ways and techniques of managing work and life, as they call it, the work-life balance. When you are not at work, when you are not the vice president of an international nonprofit company, who's Doris? What is she doing? With whom?
Okay, that's great. I think obviously work takes a lot of my time, but because I enjoy it a lot. But on the other hand, the other stuff I do is, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have to do all these other things of making sure that the family is happy, that we are talking, that we're engaging, that we know what the other is doing, even in our own little corners of work. But also, having my own hobbies. I was just thinking now that, in January I had a good resolution, which I feel so bad that I haven't kept up with. I had actually told myself that I need to get back to running, right? Because during COVID times, I was almost going to be a marathon runner, because there's also that interest to try and be as healthy as I can, and try to do that. So I look at myself. Work defines a lot of what I do, but there's also the fact that I have a family, and not only my immediate family, extended family, that really mean a lot to me, and the reason as to why I do what I do. So that's the aspects about me. And then just this weekend, one of my resolutions, which I'm really keeping in 2024, is reading. So this weekend picked up a book on finding your purpose, and I'm almost finishing it, and I feel so proud that that I can actually keep up with being able to learn and grow and develop myself, not just in terms of work. So it's a journey. It's a journey. Yeah.
And what music are you listening to?
Oh wow! I like gospel music and a lot of Niger beats. All I think any Nigerian star, whether it's Ashake or Wizkid. Who else do I like? I like Oxalate and many others. Right? I love listening to gospel music and Nigerian music. Long story, but it's just something that as I'm working, I'll put my earphones on and that keeps me just going. Yeah.
What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Yeah. That's deep. I think for me is my greatest legacy would be that that I that I've made a difference, right? I've made a difference not just in my own country in Kenya, but also in the world in terms of some of these global health issues, and to be able to stand out, to be able to do that. I think to me that would be a good legacy. But not only being able to do that is also being a good mom, being a good wife, a good partner, and a good sister to my brothers and my sister, and of course being a good daughter. I think to me those are. I think for me that's a legacy. Being able to be able to achieve, professionally, this global health excellence, but being able to do that as Doris, who is all these other things that are even much more important, right? To me, that would be the greatest legacy. So that when my own daughter thinks of me, she's not thinking, obviously, she might not want to do medicine, but she's thinking, yeah, mom did this. And she can talk about her mom in this, in this sort of very rounded way that I can feel very proud of. Yeah. So I want to be that. And I want to be a good global citizen, to be able to make a difference and to use my voice to help out, not just in eye care or HIV or TB, but even in other issues that are surrounding us in our communities. I want to be that. So my legacy is not yet set, but it's still being made. Yeah, I feel it's still being shaped, right, by the decisions I make every day, and the places that I am in, and the position that I'm occupying, and the privilege that I've been given to lead, a global health program.
So we started off talking about how you started in medicine, how going to medical school was carrying the hopes and the dreams of your parents. And do you believe that your parents are proud of you today? What do they say about you? Have
Oh,
you
they're
been able
definitely
to
proud.
fulfill their hopes and their dreams?
I think so. I think so. I think so. My dad passed away in 2002. Very proud of my achievements, and I always want to strive to make him proud, and those who, and my own family currently proud. Always, always, always. That's my biggest, if I can call it ambition, and a growing ambition. My mom definitely, because even when we're home, she'll say, "Oh yeah, Daktari." Sometimes when she calls me Daktari, can you imagine? My own mother calling me Daktari, Daktari, or when she's talking about somebody, friends or relatives, she says, "Oh, ask Daktari." So that in itself tells me that she's proud, right? She's proud of who I am. And I never want to let her down, right? I never want to let her down. I never want to let the people that matter in my life down. So I'm always hoping to keep moving, keep pushing as much as I can forward, but always being mindful of the people that matter in my life. So I know they're happy. I know they're happy, and they will continue to be happy, and I'll make them even more proud of my own of my journey. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Doris Macharia, what a wonderful and inspiring and inspired conversation with you. I love the whole of Dr. Macharia, the Daktari that you have brought, the daughter, the mother, the leader, the mentor, everything that you have brought to this conversation. And I know that even myself, I've learned a great deal from you, and certainly anybody else that is listening in can take bits and pieces of challenges and experiences that you've shared with us and learn from it and grow from it. The mindset that you have is certainly food for a young doctor to take some reflection on their career. And even for us, the older ones who've been around for some time, as you've said, you never stop learning. You never stop learning. And I've known you for many years, but it's so nice to really unpack who you are and see all the beautiful sides of Dr. Doris Macharia, a doctor of the Baobab, a proud African daughter of the soil. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you so much, Dr. Dondumiso, for the opportunity to obviously share my journey and also to reflect, because I think, I think it will also make me better and also more determined to move forward. Yeah.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Doctors of the Baobab. I hope you found today's discussion both enlightening and empowering. Before we part ways, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation to the audience. If you are a doctor and you've been inspired by what you've heard today and you're ready to take action towards positive change in your life, consider working with me, your host, Dr. Nondumiso Makunga Stevenson, as your personal life coach. You can email me to learn more about my coaching services and how we can embark on a transformative journey together. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with valuable insights and strategies for personal growth. Sharing is caring, so if you know someone who could benefit from our discussions, be sure to spread the word and encourage them to tune in. And let's stay connected beyond the podcast. Follow us on all social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and connect with like-minded individuals who are also on a journey towards living their best lives. Thank you for tuning in today. Remember, every small step you take towards your goals is a victory worth celebrating. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and keep shining bright. Doctors of the Baobab, where medicine meets motivation.